I get to channel Tyler today, so we'll see how that goes.
It is cadence down.
It will not be as vigorous as
Please, good.
Tyler's delivery. I'm sorry. Really?
Yeah.
Here, can you give me that one?
Clearly, we're having more.
Right, yeah.
Steve, we're making you a co-host in anticipation.
Okay. Is the mic working this time?
It is.
Sounds great.
Loud and clear.
Can you hear us?
I can hear you.
Okay. So we're
at 2.
Yep.
Can we get rolling? All right. Well, I'm Jeff Lanigan. I am filling in as vice chair for the committee. I'm filling in for Tyler today. He's out of town. So we'll start with introductions. So we'll go this way, Martin.
Mark Story, Whitman County Public Works. Bryce Blankenship, Moscow City Council.
Chad Wetzel, Whitman County Commissioner.
Frank Mulcahy, Pullman Public Works Director.
Aaron Gislani, PBAC.
Mike Fontel, feedback.
Lee SB, University of Idaho.
David Hall, Ladell County resident.
I'm Scoutman, retired from City of Moscow. Isaac Hall, University of Idaho, PhD student.
Cindy Zhang, University of Idaho, PhD student.
Thank you all. So we'll go around here on the screen. So Michelle.
Sources, Michelle Richmond.
We cut the tail end of that, but
I'm
can you
with,
say that again? There you go.
sorry, I'm with Idaho Department of Water Resources, Michelle Richmond.
Thank you. Luke.
Luke Kawano, Idaho Rural Water Association.
Thank you. Kara.
Kara Haley, City of Portland. Did you guys?
RuPaul.
Hi, this is Rupal with Alta Science and Engineering.
Thank you. Patrick.
Yep, Patrick Cabot, Washington State Department of Ecology, Water Resources.
Lana.
Lana Cohen, University of Idaho Water Resources Scientist.
Thank you. Nathan.
Nathan Weller, Pullman City Council.
Thanks. Kyle.
Good afternoon, Kyle Steele, City of Moscow Public Works.
Jeff Hansen.
Yep, Jeff Hansen, HDR Engineering.
Thank you. Colt.
Colt Shelton with JUB Engineering.
Steve.
Steve Robichon, PBAC Technical Advisor.
John Conan. John Conan, are you there? We see you go off mute, but we didn't hear anything.
He's a member of the public.
Okay. And then John Slegboom.
John Slagboom, WSU Energy Engineer.
Thank you. All right. Did I miss anyone? I think I got everyone.
I think you did.
All right. So first order item on the agenda here is approval of the minutes from January 15th. Got an motion.
Move to approve.
Back. Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Right. Announcements. Do we have anything formal at this point, Mike?
We could announce the research and technical colloquium, but we'll be covering that later.
Okay.
So the only thing I would announce.
Any public comments that are not otherwise on the agenda? All right, we're flying through it. No unfinished business that I'm aware of, so new business. We have a vote here for the Alta Science and Engineering contract. Mike, you can walk us through that.
Sure. So I provided the scope of work and the budget estimate to the committee. So you all have that information, and we can answer any questions if necessary. Alta has done this work for PBAC for a number of years now. Rupal is the account manager, and she's on the line if we have any questions for her. If PBAC approves this, it will become a contract between University of Idaho, where our funds are held, and Alta Science and Engineering, so a contract on PBAC's behalf, and this is how we've done it. Previously, the scope of work is essentially the same. The cost is very close to what it was for last year, and there's a contingency added in case one of the data loggers falls down a well. And the really only difference is that they're anticipating that 3 data loggers will probably need to be replaced next year instead of 2, as is usual. And just for reference, this is an old data logger. They last a long time. Do they last about 10 years, Rupal?
Yeah, that's the average that we've calculated.
This is a $750 piece of e-waste right now. It's not a fishing weight. It looks like it, but it's actually probably hazardous waste that I don't know how to dispose of.
We can help you with it.
Well, no, I like to show it off.
Okay.
It's
a teaching tool.
It looks like he's attached to it, like he's gotten.
I love these things.
Part of the hazardous waste thing.
Well, it's not
Start
that
pouring
kind of
it.
hazardous.
Equal those in the dark, you know.
This program, this is the core of what PBAC does. Everything that we do is based on data that we get from this program. And I'm recommending that Alta continue it because I feel that's the best way to maintain data integrity. And the longer we do this, the more important it gets.
Yeah.
And good for us on that. So you have the numbers in front of you. The expected cost is $13,800, and then the contingency is $4,000. There is a difference because we added to the scope a little bit for this documentation last year.
All right, thank you, Mike. Any questions on that scope of work or anything? I have a motion from someone to move that forward.
I'd move that forward.
All right,
I'll second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Right.
So Rupal, I will follow up with UI on the contract, and I expect we're in good shape. So thank you very much for your
Sounds
help
good.
with that.
Thanks, Mike.
All right, so moving on to presentations and discussion. First item is the well monitoring analysis with Steve Robichaud. Take it away, Steve.
And he's a presenter, so it was good, right?
Okay, I'm going to try to share my screen. Is that sharing?
Yep.
Okay, let me go back here. Still sharing?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, good to go then. Okay, today I'm going to talk about pumping, weather, and water levels for 2025. First, I'll start with pumping. 2025 pumping. Total was 2.39 billion gallons. I've got to try to
Can you
move this. Maximize.
Make it bigger?
Well, I've got my whole screen. Let's see.
We're seeing the not the presentation screen.
There you go. Edit version.
Not the presentation screen or the presentation?
Not.
Okay, I'll try to stop sharing. Let's see, share. Oh, I'm having a hard time now. Okay, let me. Better, not better.
It's the same.
Same. I always have a hard time knowing whether to share the PowerPoint and then go to presentation or go to presentation and then. Same.
There we
Oh,
go.
there it is.
That's better, yes.
Okay, I don't know what I did, but I did it. Okay. I also have the menu bar that's right in the way of the bottom of my slide, so I won't be able to tell you what numbers are on the bottom of the slides. 2.39 billion, you can see the pie chart breaks it out by the pumping entities. And it looks to me like, boy, bear with me. Ah,
I mean, we can see the numbers at the bottom now. Whatever you did seemed to work.
yeah, but I can't see the numbers at the bottom. The menu that gives you the camera and the mic and all that is right over the top of where the bottom of my slides are. Do you know how to get rid of them?
You can go to the top or there's a way that you can change the orientation of the menu. You may even be able to drag it.
Yeah, if you just grab it and move it, I think it'll get the.
It's hard, it won't let me drag it because it just lets me get the icons and won't let me drag. Let's see. Hide, no, I don't want to hide the meeting. Oh, I'll just continue. You can fill in the numbers for me. So it was up, what, 3 point some percent from last year?
3.6.
Yep.
3.6% more than last year. Now, if you compare that to 1992, and you'll notice the last slide, it was red. Red for this presentation is warmer, drier, or more water use. Blue would be cooler, wetter, or less water use. So you can see that compared to 1992, the water use has gone down. Oh, I can drag it now. No. A little bit better. 13% lower than 1992. If you compare it to the 5-year trailing average, it was up 3.4%. If you break it down by entities and you look at what their 2025 pumping was compared to their 2024 pumping, you see it ranges from 1% over last year up to 7% over last year. But all of the entities pumped more water in 25 than they did in 24. When I look at these numbers, one of the things I like to do is I'd like to compare the cities, because generally the cities should kind of follow in lockstep with each other because they don't change things markedly year to year. So when I see things like this, it makes me wonder what difference was there between Pullman and Moscow during 2025? And I'll give you a little bit better breakdown on that later, but it's still kind of a question because Moscow was up 7%, but Pullman was only up 1%. The universities will vary more year to year because programmatically they can make bigger changes year to year, and their enrollment changes a lot more percentage wise than population changes in the two towns. So I don't really worry when I see differences between the universities, but for the cities, it's kind of makes me wonder. This chart shows population and pumping since 1992. The change from 1992, the solid lines are a population change since 1992. I don't have Moscow's 2025 population, but they were up 42% in 2024. Pullman in 2025 is up 49% from where they were in 1992. During the same period, you can see that the pumping for both of them has gone down. And so Pullman's pumping is down 7.6% since 1992, and Moscow's is down 18.9%. So population has gone up, pumping has gone down. When you kind of combine those numbers, you can come up with an estimate of per capita change And so again, since 1992, you can see that Pullman's per capita change is 38% less. Moscow's 47% less. This is a monthly pumping chart, and it shows the percentage of the total annual pumping that happens during each month. And if you zero in on June through September, you see that over half of the pumping occurs during those 4 months.
Right.
We look at the same chart, monthly pumping, and draw a straight line that's the average pumping January, February, November, and December. So that's kind of water that you would expect to be used indoors year round because there's not a lot of outdoor watering during January, February, November, December. And we can call that number baseline. So that's the pumping that you expect to be used kind of indoors. What's above the baseline is non-baseline. And so you can think of baseline pumping as the indoor pumping and non-baseline as the outdoor pumping. Now, it's kind of a fishy estimate for university places because during the summer you'll see the population go down, and so fewer people living here, fewer people using water indoors. So it's not as good an estimate as it is in places that have stable populations, but it's as good as we can do with the numbers that we have. So if you look at baseline water use, 2025 compared to 2024, now baseline is indoor, and you look at this again and you see it ranges from minus 5.5% for WSU up to plus 3.2 for Palouse. But again, when you look at the difference between Pullman and Moscow, you see a pretty big difference there. So something has been happening during 2025 that changed the number from 2024. And I'm not sure what that is. It could be something in terms of drastic conservation measures, really big water leaks, or possibly population changes related to enrollment changes. I'm not sure, but it's a pretty big number, and we don't usually get that big a number from year to year. Non-baseline, this is the outdoor water use, and you see it goes all the way up to, this one is if you don't count UI's reclamation or reclaimed water. So basically it goes from plus 15% for Moscow down to plus 6% for UI. And you see that Pullman and Moscow are kind of close to each other. So that's the kind of thing we expect year to year for the cities, is their changes to be kind of similar to each other. So nothing strange going on outdoors between the cities, but something going on indoors. This is the target chart, the traditional target chart that was used from 1992 for a long time. The two targets that were put in the groundwater management plan back in 1992 were a 1% annual increment target and 125% ceiling target. And you'll see that the total pumping, which is the blue bars, really, except for the first couple of years for the annual increment, never even came close to getting over these targets. Now, more recently, the discussion has shifted to trying to use conservation to offset increased demand due to population changes. And so if you look at this chart, this line here, this is a 5-year trailing average. And comparing the actual pumping to the 5-year trailing average would basically give you a measure of whether the pumping was above or below the 5-year average. And so kind of the new discussion would be, the target would be to keep the pumping at or below the 5-year moving average. And that way your pumping keeps up with population change and it gives you time to get the supplemental supply to stabilize the aquifer. If you look at the tail end of that chart, you can see that from 2020 to 2025, the pumping's varied quite a bit, and the average has come down with these low pumping water years, the COVID years. And last year, since it was hot and dry, the pumping was up. So you can see that the target for last year would have been 2,250 million gallons, or 2.25 billion, and the actual pumping was 2.32 billion. So the target was missed last year by a total of 70 million. If you take that 5-year average and you go forward, you see that the 2026 target would be 2.286 billion gallons, and that's 34 million gallons less than the actual pumping in 2025. So to meet that 5-year trailing average target next year or this year, the pumping entities have to pump 34 million gallons less than they did last year. Okay, I'm going to talk a little bit about Pullman and their irrigation ordinance. They've now, I don't know if this is maybe the 3rd year of the irrigation ordinance in Pullman. They have even odd watering restrictions, so half of the addresses can do Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, the other half Wednesday, Friday, Sunday. Pullman got daily pumping data together over the summer, and I looked at that data and compiled it, and you see there's the average pumping between June and September by day of week. And you can see that Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday were the higher pumping, and Sunday and Monday were the lower pumping. If you look at the irrigation ordinance, you see that really there's no outdoor irrigation allowed on Monday. So that kind of makes sense. The Monday pumping is lower than all the other days of the week. But in a way, it doesn't make a lot of sense because if you go back and you put in that baseline pumping that I talked about earlier, the indoor pumping, the baseline pumping only comes to here. So what that means is there appears to be a lot of water being used outdoor, not for residential irrigation on Mondays. Now, I don't know if that's city properties, university properties, car washes, things like that, but there's still a lot of water being used on days when there's no outdoor irrigation allowed, and it's for residential outdoor irrigation.
Wouldn't be.
That take into account the construction? I mean, I know they meter those hydrants that they're pulling off of.
The total pumping does if it came out of one of the pumped wells that Pullman does, and so unless it's a
Yeah.
private well, it would take that into account.
Yeah, they put their own meter off of the hydrant so the city knows what to charge them, but I don't know if that might account for some of that.
The enforcement is a very soft approach.
You're right.
If you're picking up what I'm putting down.
Yeah.
We depend on the neighbors to police the other neighbors.
Right.
Yeah. The other thing I would add is the thought at someday would be to get smart meters and be more sophisticated about being able to look into when people are watering when they're supposed to be. But it is still a very new ordinance and new restrictions. And so to Mike's point, it's a soft enforcement at this point.
And keep in mind that even though it's soft enforcement, it is having an impact because there are people that are obeying it, and that's reflected in the fact that the Monday number is lower than all the other days of the week.
And then that's a good point, Steve. The other piece is parks and like large facilities like schools. They are supposed to limit their days at a particular park to 3 days, but they're not restricted to which days. So like probably they're doing most of theirs Monday through Friday, actually, like when staff is around, basically. And also handheld watering is not really, that doesn't play into it either way. Somebody can handheld water anytime they want as long as they're there.
Okay. This is another chart that shows annual pumping from 2006. The blue bars are baseline, and the red bars on top of those are the non-baseline. So you think of blue as indoor, red is outdoor. And when you look at kind of the trend, the general trend here, you see the blue bars are just kind of trending steadily downward, which would reflect indoor conservation efforts. Here you see during COVID, we had reduced pumping because of reduced people. And so those are kind of anomalies. But when you get up to the total pumping up here, you see it's more jagged. And the reason it's more jagged, of course, is the weather changes year to year. And depending upon whether it's a wet, cold summer or a warm, dry summer, you're going to get more or less pumping during the summer. And those summer months end up being the things that are responsible for the major change year to year between pumping. So I'm going to look at weather here. 2025 weather. This chart shows monthly average temperature from 2007 to 2025. When I kind of zoom back and look at this just kind of broadly, it seems to me that there's a lot more red bars than there are blue bars overall. But especially when you look the last few years, most months have been warmer than average, and only a few months have been cooler than average. And in 2025, February was the only month that was cooler than the average. So things are warming up, or they seem to have been in the last few years. But you can see that both 2024 and 2025 were pretty warm years. And so we would expect pumping to kind of have been above average during those years. One of the ways that you can kind of measure water use that the plants use is by doing pan evaporation. This shows monthly pumping in 2024 and 25 during what's traditionally considered the irrigation September, April through September. And you can see that this is a change from 5-year trailing average. So 2024 and 2025 were both a lot warmer and drier than the 5 previous years. And I'm going to look at specifically at July. And so you can see July of 2024, there was 2.6 inches more evaporation than the average. And July in 2025, it was 1.9 inches. So you would expect both years would have used more water than average, but you would also expect that 2025 would have used less water than 2024 in July. So when I look at that, we'll see if that actually rings true. This is another estimate that you can get from the pan evaporation. You can come up with an estimate of how many gallons per acre you're going to need to water your turf grass. And so this compares 2025 to 2024. In June, it would take 18,700 gallons more water than it did in June of 24. In July, it would take 16,000 gallons less water than it did in 2024. So we should see this when we look at the monthly pumping, and it turns out that we don't. This is the monthly pumping, and each bar here is represented by one of the entities. The bar on the right is the total for all the entities combined. And you see in June, sure enough, everybody pumped more in 2025 than they did in 2024. But in July, only WSU pumped less in 2025 than 2024. So for some reason, when we would have expected there to be less pumping in 25 than 24, we only see that in one of the entities, and the rest were at zero or a little bit above zero. And so I think there may be 2 reasons for that. One reason might be that people's turf isn't really ideal turf, and it doesn't have a nice deep root system. And if they put a little bit too much water on the turf, then when it gets hot, the grass will wilt and it'll start to change color sooner than a well-watered turf will. And so people will put water on it when really it theoretically wouldn't need more water. And another one is I think that sometimes people don't really look at things like evapotranspiration when they decide whether to water. They look out the backyard or they have their timer set. And so sometimes just the way people think is different from what the predictions you would make with the models that take the scientific data into account.
Hey,
So,
Steve, this is Kara. Sorry, I don't want to interrupt, but
no, go
does it
ahead.
seems like maybe it feels like when it gets hottest earliest affects a lot of the outdoor season. So like if we have a mild June, it feels like a lot of people wait to turn on their irrigation system until they think they're ready. But then once it's on, maybe like you said, a lot of them don't pay attention to the changing weather patterns and they just let their system run.
Yeah.
So maybe that plays a role into it. And maybe that goes along, when people get more technologically advanced and they use sensors and things to have their irrigation system adjust, that would be something that would over time help with that.
Yeah, I agree, Karen. I think that as a first step in that, I wouldn't want to push anyone, but it seems like the cities might be able to do something like that because they have the sensors, they have a website, and if people were concerned enough about it to see whether or not they needed to pump, they could take a look at the website and it would say, well, yeah, maybe you don't or maybe you do. But
Yeah,
that's kind of second tier stuff.
makes sense.
Okay. This is a precipitation chart. It goes back all the way to 1893. This is a plant science farm, the Parker Farm out by the Elks Golf Course east of Moscow. Each one of these dots represents the precipitation for a given month in a given year. So there's a whole bunch of little dots on here for each year. 2025 is the red circles and 2024 is the green, and the black bars are the average. And so you can see that except for February and March, last year the precipitation was below average, a little bit in November, I guess it was above. And April, May, June, July, August, September, October were all below average precipitation in Moscow. Now, not that that makes a lot of difference because you can see that the precipitation generally is pretty low during those summer months, but still, whatever precipitation you might have hoped to have gotten out of average precipitation just wasn't coming last year. And then come December, you look at this. Moscow just got 8 inches of water in December. So all that water that you didn't get for the first part of the year, it looks like you got that in December. This is a chart from the Moscow Mountain Snowtail site. This is precipitation and it goes for the water year. So this would be October 2024 up to September 2025. The red triangles are the precipitation for 25, and then the 5 previous years are behind it with different symbols and different colors. And you can see that the precipitation pretty much hung in there pretty well for most of the water year. It came out a little bit low towards the end when it was June, July, August, September, and it wasn't raining at all. But for most of the year, the precipitation was doing pretty good in 25. Snow depth, same kind of story. The snow depth was pretty good. It was kind of in the middle, nice, typical, basically 5-year average meeting. But then the snow started coming off the mountain a little bit earlier than you'd like. And most of the snow was off probably 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks before when you have those late runoff years. What you would expect with climate change is for the runoff, which is represented by this leg of the curve, to kind of move its way earlier in the year. That's what the climate change models say. And also you would expect the snow depth, the height of the peaks of the snow depth to go down. So what we can kind of expect is for that hump to kind of scrunch down as time goes on if climate change goes according to what the models are predicting. This is a cumulative precipitation for 2025 calendar year this time, January to December. And you can see it started out okay. In the summer, there wasn't much precipitation, so it started falling behind the average. And then in December, it caught up again, and it was actually higher than the average precipitation by the end of the year. This is data from the stream flow gauge, the USGS gauge out there at Farm Road or Winco Road, or maybe it's Home Depot Road now, I don't know. And you can basically see spikes when there's runoff or when there's precipitation events. This was a big rain on snow event where the rain came running down the stream and it melted a bunch of snow, which then came running down the stream at the same time. That's a lot of CFS going through Paradise Creek at that gauging station. Climate change, again, is going to push this curve earlier in the year, and it's going to make precipitation events more spiky. So you can expect runoff earlier in the year, and a lot of the precipitation events are going to be larger than rather than smaller if the climate change models work out. Now here's 2026 water year, which started in October of last year, and we're in February now of this year. So this is up through yesterday. And you can see that the precipitation is hanging in there pretty good with the 5-year average. It was kind of dry for October and November, and then in December you got a lot of precipitation. And then of course in January you got some more, and recently you got a bunch more. But if you look at the snow depth, it doesn't look quite as nice because a lot of that precipitation that came in October and November didn't fall as snow up on Moscow Mountain. So there wasn't really any snow up on the mountain until early December, and not appreciable snow until mid-December. And then again, you had a little bit of rain and you had stable warm temperatures, and the snow actually started to melt a little bit. And here's what you've been getting this last week. So the snow depth is catching up, but you can see it has a long way to go before it gets to what the 5-year average might be. If you take that snow depth and the precipitation and you combine them, you get what's called the snow water equivalent. And this is kind of a measure of how much water is available in that snow up on the mountain. So now that we know that there's recharge that's occurring on the eastern side of the basin at the mountain front, what we'd like to see is as much snow water equivalent as late as possible into the year, and then as gradual a reduction of the snow water equivalent as possible, because a lot of snow and slowly melting it off is going to maximize the recharge. And so far this year, things are looking a little bit sad up there because there's not a lot of water in storage up there, even after this recent storm. So there's still more time to catch up, but you got a lot of catching up to do if you're going to get to where that 5-year average is. Okay, water levels. Mickey presented last month about the monitoring wells and the data loggers and downloading them all. Once those get downloaded and processed, they are used to create a hydrograph. This is a chart that shows all of the hydrographs, or most of the hydrographs from the whole monitoring network, the upper and the lower aquifer wells. So I'm going to show an example of an upper aquifer well. This is the Moscow PD monitoring well. This is in the sidewalk out in front of what used to be the Moscow Police Department. I guess now it's Pritchard Art Gallery. And you can see that the water level in the upper aquifer was declining pretty steadily until 2017, and then it picked up and started to recover when Moscow quit pumping out of the upper aquifer. So at this point, Moscow was pumping out of the upper aquifer. They stopped pumping out of the upper aquifer, and the water levels have been recovering ever since. So this is pretty solid proof that the upper aquifer recharges well when you just don't pump it too hard. This is another upper aquifer well. This is Moscow Well 2. It's one of their production wells. They pump it a little bit these days, but not very much. You can see that since they stopped pumping in 2017, water levels have been increasing. And now if you go straight across from what they are now, you got to go back about 20 years to get to where the water levels were the same height as they are now. Okay, if you go back to this chart and you look at the lower aquifer wells, you notice that all of the lower aquifer wells seem to kind of have this same behavior, a steady gradual decline. And so what I did was I took 10 of these monitoring wells and I charted them all on one chart. And then I averaged all 10 of those together. And then I did a regression on that average, and the average decline since 2013 is 0.72 feet per year. I did this in another way. I looked at two separate time periods. I looked from 2013 through 2017 and 2019 from 2024. This representing before Moscow quit pumping out of the upper aquifer, and this representing after Moscow quit pumping out of the upper aquifer. And if you look kind of closely, you can tell this one is kind of not as steep a decline as this one. And when I run the numbers, I get 0.69 feet a year before the upper aquifer change, and I get 0.8 feet per year after the upper aquifer change. So why would that be? Of course, it's because when Moscow was pumping away in the upper aquifer, they quit pumping out of the upper aquifer, but they had to start pumping more out of the upper or the lower aquifer to make up for that pumping that they were getting out of the upper aquifer. So you can see that the difference is 192 million gallons. So on average, Moscow is now pumping 192 million gallons more out of the lower aquifer than they used to be. And that's reflected in that steepening of the decline curve for the lower aquifer. What is 192 million gallons? Well, for context, when you go back to that very first pie chart that I showed, it's pretty much the same as what UI and Palouse combined pumped last year. So they're basically by cutting themselves out of the upper aquifer, they've added a new Palouse and UI to the lower aquifer. Okay, I'm back to the upper aquifer again. This is again Moscow well 2, the production well, decline, 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 and then recovery. And this shows all the pumping out of the upper aquifer during that time. So 2000, pretty much after 2018, almost all the upper aquifer pumping was gone. Before 2018, that number from before, I think 170 million gallons. If you draw a line from back in 2004 over to what it is now, you can say, well, the water levels was about the same height as it is now this long ago. So if we take all the pumping that happened between these two times and divide it by all that time, we should be able to come up with a sustainable number, a safe yield for the upper aquifer. And when I do that, I see there's 259 months, 3.67 billion gallons pumped. And I do the division and I see that there's what I can't see now, but it's 70 some million gallons a year.
Yes. 70, yeah.
So what this is saying is that the upper aquifer where it was being pumped, which is on the east side of Moscow, basically, could pump 170 some million gallons more sustainably and keep the level at what it's at now. So when you look back in history, you'll see that a similar thing happened years ago. And before about 1960, both Moscow and UI pumped solely out of the upper aquifer. This is an upper aquifer monitoring well from back in those days. And you can see that they were pumping the upper aquifer way too much and it was going down quickly. And that's when Moscow decided to drill a deep well, and then New Idaho decided to drill deep wells. And so since then, UI has been only on the lower aquifer, and Moscow again had a little bit out of the upper aquifer, but they cut that off in 2018. So you can do a similar thing that I just showed you for recent time, and you can go across any two periods where the water level was the same and find out how much pumping happens during that time, and you can get another number for how much water is a safe yield out of the upper aquifer. Turns out in 1992, a master's student at UI got his master's thesis doing exactly this. His name was Cliff Baines, and it also turns out that PBAC funded that project back in 1992. And what Cliff did was he went back and he compiled and estimated all the pumping between 1936 and 1990. And a lot of this is based on per capita, but a lot of it is actual pumping too. So he knows how much was pumped and he knows what the water levels were. And when he did that, he concluded that the safe yield is estimated to be 500 to 520 million gallons a year. And that's a lot more than the 170 some that were estimated for the Moscow pumping wells. But that's because the UI wells were pumping over on the west side of Moscow. And there turns out there's additional water in the upper aquifer available on the west side of Moscow. So if a person were to go looking for extra upper aquifer water and turn back on the Moscow pumps, there's theoretically over 500 million gallons of upper aquifer water per year available kind of in the Moscow vicinity. And there's all kinds of issues with the upper aquifer water needing a different form of treatment than lower aquifer water and flushing the system and stuff like that. So not all of that water would be available for consumption, but a significant percent of it could be available for consumption. Okay, I think I've gone through everything I need to go through. Any questions on any of that?
Thank you, Steve. Any questions for Steve?
Yep.
All right. What's that, Steve?
Did I hear David asking a question? No?
No, this is Jeff, just
Okay.
prompting anyone here. So thank you very much. Appreciate it, Steve.
You're welcome.
Would you like us to send this presentation to the committee?
Be great.
Because it's a lot at once. So we'll, when you're ready, we'll send it to the committee, Steve, so they can digest it and see if there's any other comments or questions for some of these folks, this is the first time they've seen this.
Yep.
And this is my third time, and I'm just kind of starting to wrap my brain around it, so.
And I guess I'll comment on that. I guess my goal when I do these is to give you folks the information you need so that when you talk to people out in the community and they have questions, you can kind of give them information that we know is factual rather than some of the stuff that's 20 or 30 or 40-year old that seems to keep making its way around the basin from year to year. So if you have any questions, go ahead and ask me or Mike, and Mike can ask me.
I got a quick question that just came to mind. Steve, you pointed out at the beginning that this feels like a little bit of an anomaly year with Pullman and Moscow's pumping being kind of not super consistent. Can you think of any past years where that was also the case, or you can't really pinpoint? I guess.
You know what? I can't think of any offhand, Kara, but this is the 20th year I've been given this presentation, so I could surely go back and take a look at it and see if I see.
No, you're really good at remembering those things. I just was curious if something came to mind. I was trying to kind of rack my brain, like you said, and think about if there was something that I was aware of that would have played a big role. The downtown project was the only one that I could think of, in that we replaced a lot of really old water main in 2024. And so, and actually at one point in time, the groundwater, we had some issues with needing to pump some of the deeper sanitary sewer utility trenches that were going in. And then once we had replaced the water, a lot of that kind of cleared up, although it was also associated with the drier part of the season. But I am thinking that there's potential that replacing those water lines did, hopefully get rid of some leaking that was occurring in that area.
Okay.
I don't know if it probably wouldn't make up that much of a difference, but that's the only thing I can think of.
Well, and I don't know about enrollment. If WSU was steady and UI was up, how many people does that mean? Are there people that work from home who live in Moscow and work at WSU that didn't used to work from home? Did Schweitzer hire a bunch of people who now live in Moscow? I don't know what's going on day to day that would make the indoor water use change as much. That's pretty much got to be based on people or leaks.
Yeah, that's why I was thinking maybe downtown that would have been a continuous leak year round for however long it's been there, probably getting worse over the years too. Anyways, very interesting. Thank you.
I can explain some of the anomalies in the monthly data between 2024 and 2025 on UI's campus, but in the aggregate data between the two cities that includes the universities, I'm not sure that I have the anecdotal information or the operational information.
Well, one of the problems with trying to do a per capita number is the cities want to take their pumping divided by the total population, when really the total population includes those folks that are living on the university campuses and are going to the campuses and using water. So their per capita number is kind of artificially lowered by not considering the university pumping in the calculation. And so that's why it basically only makes sense for per capita calculations to zoom way out and just say, this is the whole basin and how much it used, and this is how many people are living here.
Yeah, and a significant number, at least at U of I, of our employees live in the county, so maybe not part of the basin in some cases. No, not users in town.
Yeah, the basin is only a very small part of Layton County.
That's what I mean.
Yeah.
And I know that a lot of people who live in Moscow work at WSU, and I think it's probably more people are out commuting to WSU than are out commuting back to UI. So they go and use WSU water during the day, and then they come home and use Moscow water at night.
And that's the case for a lot of people in Deary too. A lot of people use Deary water at night and Moscow water during the day.
Most of too.
Yeah.
I got one more question. Steve, where is the well that you were pointing to in Moscow that they used to pull from the shallow aquifer? Where is that spatially located?
The PD well, Moscow PD.
Okay, so it's right downtown.
Yeah.
It's it's a little cover, right? It's a little metal cover in the sidewalk right in front of where the police station used to be, and it's where that art gallery is now.
Okay, I guess just back to Steve's point about we have actually seen a increase in the water levels dropping because obviously they've stopped pulling from the upper aquifer. Now they're pulling from the lower aquifer instead. I'm just thinking about, that 170 million gallons per year, as we talk about all these alternatives, is there a way to tap back into that? To maybe pull from that aquifer, which is a little less sensitive and possibly water areas just in the summer. I don't know, but it kind of depends on where that's at. So just
Well, and that's why I put that last bit in, which showed back when UI was pumping, and that number goes from 170 to 500 million gallons. So there's a lot of upper aquifer on the west side of Moscow that Moscow doesn't really tap in their production wells, which are downtown in Moscow.
yeah, okay. I'm just thinking maybe, and I know there are some water quality challenges, but kind of like U of I's reclamation facility, if there's a way to tap into that and use it for circumstances that maybe don't require a higher treatability, it might be something to think about down the road.
Yeah, Kara, and members, this is Kyle Steele. I'm with the City of Moscow. Yeah, we're looking into all of these statistics. We do have a lot of water quality challenges with wells 2 and 3, and so it's something that we're looking at. We're looking at rehabbing well 3. As Steve mentioned, we've got really high iron and manganese in both of those wells, so it takes a lot of backwashing to operate those. So it's definitely something that we're looking at.
Awesome.
Any other questions? All right. Well, thank you, Steve. Moving on. Next on the agenda here is water conservation outreach update with Erin.
Thank you. Okay, so in January, we did 2 events at the Neal Public Library and a talk with the Sierra Club. The Neal Public Library event was for the WSU Gardeners Open House. It was a big event. Last year, they only had 89 people in attendance, and Min told me, I think the final count was like 130. So there's a lot of people that we got to talk to. We got to hand out a lot of devices. We had the poster board of our recharge project that we built for the summit there. So we got to kind of, again, just continue to put messaging out about this recharge in a way that, we haven't been able to do in the past. The Sierra Club talk went really well. It was really interesting to kind of talk to people individually about what their specific concerns were when it comes to the recharge project as a whole. Mike attended that with me as well, and we got some good feedback. It's hopefully something we can bring to the committee in the future as far as adjustments going forward when we talk about putting that recharge plan in place. We had a couple snow events in February. Fortunately, those were canceled, but we've got 4 events in March scheduled. One with the State of Washington Research Center at WSU. So this past week, myself, Dr. Julie Podolsky, and Dr. Hannah Hammerell met for coffee, and we're going to kind of do a discussion forum kind of event at WSU in the middle end of March to kind of build momentum there as well. Beginning of March, I've got a talk with the River Watersheds Community student group at WSU, and then another talk at WSU's Comsure School for Communication, Health, Risk, and Environmental School, as well as an event with the City of Moscow and Moscow Public Library for Fix a Leak Week in partnership with Kelly. So just to kind of reiterate, we've been putting a lot of effort to go to WSU. So I want the community to know that we're working really hard to build relationships there, and obviously still with University of Idaho and the City of Moscow as well. But we've been doing a lot of work in Washington. So those are really all my updates about.
So we, some of you will recall that we started the water conservation outreach program in Latah County because that's how the funding was. But last year, we decided to expand it across the state line and they don't know us as well across the state line, the different student groups and the faculty and the library and so on, but we're definitely getting there. We're making a lot of progress, and I'm real happy that she's able to report on these things.
Cool. Thank you, Aaron. Questions, anyone?
When is that date? Do you have a date set for the library here in Moscow?
Yeah, so that one's gonna be March 18th from 5 to 6. We're gonna have a plumber out. We're gonna do like a workshop on how to, winterfy your pipes, fix a pipe. It's gonna be really cool.
How to keep your toilet from running. That's a
Hey, Kelly's gonna plumb from the void, so gonna be a good one.
all right. Next item, HDR updates. Jeff Hansen.
Jeff, do you need the screen, or are you just gonna talk?
I was just going to talk because it's pretty straightforward, I think. Our activities over the past month on the Clearwater River have focused on continued work with the communications subcommittee on stakeholder engagement. And so I'm sure Mike, Aaron, others might speak to that here in a moment. And then on the technical front, we continued with further conversation with IDWR, exploring water rights feasibility of this concept of a new diversion on the Clearwater. And we just talked with the technical subcommittee earlier today on some next steps there. Good conversation. I think good identification of a couple topics relative to what is the, kind of formalizing what is the ask in terms of quantity of water to be used for supplemental supply. And then also what we were broaching the technical subcommittee with was a plan for how to organize and present some of the technical information that we're working on in terms of like stream flow, characterization, in such a way that IDWR can process that and provide more input. So that's where we're at, and we're right in the middle then of a lot of that technical work. So that's the update. I didn't have anything else to really share with the full group.
Thanks, Jeff.
Thank you. Anything else on that?
They're getting down in the weeds now. So HDR is earning their money.
That's the idea.
But we're reaching the point where we really need the specific skills and experience that they're bringing.
All right. So moving on to subcommittee reports, communications.
So I'll speak on behalf of that. The communications subcommittee met Tuesday. And so the updates are, one, there's the short video project that I don't think anybody in this room has participated in that yet, but some of your names are on it coming up. Like everything else, it's taking longer than we think or than we had expected or planned originally. So we do have the first video, which is just an introduction to the aquifer and the challenges. It's really nice. Who all did we share that with? Just the communications folks, I think.
No, we played it. We played it last.
Oh, we did play it last time, didn't we? Yeah, thanks. And I guess you're still waiting on the final version.
Yeah, because Tyler's out, so there's like some last minute. Wanted to change, so Corey's gonna send it to me to hopefully post probably by March.
So we'll post it on our social media and website as soon as it's available, and then we'll roll out the next ones of those that were planned. And then the upcoming event is the Research and Technical Colloquium on March 11th. And I'm always nervous about this because this has only been done once before, and it was a few years ago. So I don't know who's going to show up, but I'm feeling good about it. We're doing some outreach, definitely at WSU, and I'll be reaching out to the UI academics who we know to spread that out. And Bryce has talked about some other folks as well. Additionally, we reached out to the state agency folks, some of the nonprofits that have technical staff, And then some of the professionals in the area, I know some of the Alta folks are interested in planning to join us, as well as one of the IWRB Northern Idaho members told me today she's planning to join, and that's great. So I think it's going to be a good event, and any of the committee members, if you're available, I hope you'll join us as well. There'll be some, well, you've got the program. I think it's a good program because it's balanced between different technical areas as well as throughout our geography. And then it'll have the very latest HDR updates. So looking forward to that.
All right.
And then the website. Do you want to talk about the website?
Yes, please. Oh, the website.
Yeah, so we met with University of Idaho Sustainability, Sarah Dawson, and one of their graduate student interns, Madison. And we shared, not doing WordPress, not doing it, I did it once. Gave them all my logins. They have 4 student interns that will, dedicate professional experience to helping us support housing the regional water conservation plan for the Palouse on PBAC's website. So a couple months ago, probably like 4 or 5 months ago, we brought it to the community and see if that was something that would be interested. They came to approach us because they wanted to have it be on like a neutral website. They didn't want to house it on U Idaho's website. In addition to, I don't think that U Idaho really kind of does stuff like that on their website anymore. So we were able to meet with them last week, and they're going to start building it up on our website, and they'll have it drafted. So by the time that everything looks good for them to present, we'll invite them. Some of the students will come, and we can make sure that it looks good and congruent with the information that we already have on our website, and post it.
So this is a significant resource that's being offered, is, one of our great partners in the UI Sustainability Office. And it's a win-win.
All right.
Sorry.
Anything else?
That's it.
Good. As mentioned, technical committee met earlier today with HDR, talked about their efforts and how to support them. I think we got a little homework to do there just to kind of revisit what that, in particular, what that target water right quantity should be, and make sure we're all on the same page with that number. Anything else to add on that? I think Jeff Hampton touched on it already.
I think Jeff touched on it. A water right application is an incredibly complex.
Yeah, there's a lot of moving parts there.
And you want to do it right. So we're definitely depending on them. And it's been pointed out that I sing the praises of HDR's stakeholder engagement and outreach folks disproportionately. Well, now you're going to hear me talk about their technical side, how knowledgeable and helpful they are.
One other technical thing.
You do that, Jeff?
I appreciate that, Mike, but I didn't mean to cause such grief about that topic. So
it's all good.
Isaac, can I put you on the spot real quick? Just
Yeah.
Any news on the work you're doing that notable for the group?
Yeah, I wanted to give an update. So we got up to 25 locations sampled. We sent the samples to the labs already. We got the results back. We have like the full data for those 25. And that was our goal. That's sort of our halfway point. My advisor would like to get another 30-ish though, so it's a little under halfway. And now that, well, we thought we'd have to be like slowing down because there'd be like a bunch of snow, but it doesn't seem like that's the case. So after the holidays, we're looking to sort of get back out there, get more sampling in. And yeah, that's where we are right now. My current step is, now that we have the results from this last, the lab results for this last batch of like 15-ish samples, I like to sort of send them the preliminary lab results, interpretations, and then I ask like, so now that you have these results, do you know any neighbors? That worked with the first round pretty well. Other than that, we're hoping it's not at the point where all the easy pickings are gone and it's gonna be super hard to get the last half of our set. And I like to point out that when I went out with Chad Wetzel a couple months ago, that was really helpful. And if he's not too busy, I'd like to see if we could set up another time like that again. My advisor really doesn't want me to try to go out alone knocking on doors of people. So
Yeah, we can probably do that. I'd probably get through February 1st. Most people in wintertime, it's just hard to get people. You don't want to walk up in the dark. And they're not at home during the day, so we'll get through February and we'll probably find some time.
yeah, that'd be good.
March.
Like a weekend to go out. Other than that, yeah, just anything we can try to get the word out there. We do have sort of a preliminary heat map of water ages. But since there's a bunch, well, not a bunch, but there's some pretty clear gaps of areas we have no samples yet. It kind of looks weird where it's like you have some good ages, but then it's like, it like falls out as if there's a giant valley there when really it's just we don't have data.
If you can get those areas mapped out here in March, then we can hit those areas.
Yeah, I'll get a list of addresses that I checked the well log from the IDWR database and the specific locations that are gaps. And hopefully, one of the gaps I had recently was Robinson Park, and just talking to one guy there, he was able to set me up with like 4 neighbors just within a couple miles away, and that was super helpful.
Cool, good.
So I'm hoping for things like that to happen. But it's looking good. We did hit our halfway mark, and we're expected to get the other half by the end of fall or beginning of fall, end of summer-ish. So if I could get about just 5 samples per month until then, that would hit our overall goal. And
Great. Thank you, Isaac. Appreciate the update. And thank you, Chad, for your assistance there. Let's
knock on doors.
Yeah, no, whatever, whatever works. I think we ought to make sure we keep talking about it too, because I think between communication subcommittee and the work Aaron's doing and other outreach mechanisms.
Yeah, we have like a good
think we can get
partnership
there.
with PLT, like they've been helping us a lot too, and I know Paul, so there's
Yeah.
we can have maybe some specific address areas and we can just narrow that.
Sounds like Chad's the key more than anything.
He is.
Paul's been pulling his weight.
I need a
Chad
truck,
is.
a border collie. And
afraid to knock on doors.
Yeah.
Dr. Langman will be presenting on the technical side of this, not the practical. Well, it all turns into practical, but the theory behind it at the colloquium as well.
Great. Finance, Lee?
All right. So not a whole lot to report out about finance. We had just 2 transactions last month. One was to Alta, and then another one, I guess, for some pens or something, $35 worth of office supplies for PBAC.
Rain gauges.
Yeah, rain gauges.
Just in time.
Anyway, PBAC has received all invoices from member entities, including Latah County at this point, and still waiting on the budget transfer to the city of Moscow for $186,925.10. And then the total invoice so far for HDR is $72,827. This is reimbursable to city of Moscow from the Idaho Water Resources Board. And the total that remains on the contract is $263,000.
They're thrifty.
Yeah,
Good deal.
I think as you mentioned, that will start eking up as they get into the work.
We're working them.
Yep.
All right, thank you, Lee.
Yep.
Any questions on any of the subcommittee reports? All right. Any other reports or announcements we forgot about? I think we covered it.
Something I know.
All right, our next PBAC meeting is scheduled for Thursday, March 19th, 2 p.m. Right here.
Same bat station, same bat location?
Yeah.
Everybody.
So do I have a motion to adjourn?
Move to adjourn.
Sounds good. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Well done for chair. More like a pro chair, right? Pro chair. Pro chair.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. So Jeff, when should we get together for like lunch or something to start?
Anytime. I'm pretty flexible.